I come back from the 60th anniversary of my judo club, where I was practicing judo already years ago. And, talking with my old friends and teachers, I realized that the, for a lot of reasons, it's the best moments of my life. And it's something that I really, I've always thought, okay, if there is something very good in your life, you must keep it in your life, So obviously the form and way dies, changes, and that's normal. We live in a world where everything changes and we evolve, and our passions, our way of living, our motivations change, and that's just normal. So the form changes, but I think what is important is to keep what really motivated us, in what were really the values in what we have lived, and to continue to keep them in our life. And I realize always that the moments where I was practicing judo and doing competition, that's important, because competition is really something where you give everything you have, and you train harder, and you kind of create an atmosphere, a kind of relationship with your partners, which is very strong. Everyone just invests himself very deeply in this practice, and that really creates some kind of relationship which is based on the mutual, the same kind of deep investment in something. And that was really, I think, the core part that really created this kind of atmosphere, which created those best moments in my life. And that's really something that I miss a lot, and I never really found that again in my life. I don't really know exactly how to perpetuate this kind of mindset and of experience in my life, without doing judo again, because just, things change, and that's not my goal. The goal is really to keep this core, the core that was very extremely good, intense, and to keep that in my life. So what I noticed, it's really that, the best moments were, in a way, the hardest, in a way, when I say the hardest, it really depends, but when it's about sport, clearly that you make yourself the choice to invest very deeply in this practice. So it's, it's physically very difficult, but it's mentally not that difficult, because it's choice, But sometimes I'm sure that sometimes we've experienced difficult things in our life that we haven't chosen, that we could feel as a victim. But as long as we don't perceive ourselves as a victim, and we just say, okay, I'll make do with that, and I'll find a solution. And in these moments, I would say the hardest, the harder the moments, the better the experience, and that's going to create the best moments in your life, because I think that's the moments where you express yourself the most, at the fullest, where you live more intensely. So I would say, by opposition to living in our mind, we're always lost in our thoughts, in our imagination, lost in our past, worrying about our future. And that's, I would say, probably the opposite of living intensely now. When you're doing competition, you are intensely in what you're doing, because the practice is very physical, so you have to be fully in your practice. Competition is very intense, so you have to be fully in what you're doing, whether it's a sport or anything at all, but especially maybe in sport, because mind and body is deeply focused on the competition, the activity. So I think that's, in the end, the maybe the final word is living intensely, that is fully now, mind and body, is what creates the best moments in our life. We're going to create great relationships with the persons we're living those moments, especially if they are in the same mindset, in the same kind of experience, and that's probably the core part that he want to perpetuate and to keep. So I was very pleased of meeting again my old friends, but that's really what created those kind of relationships, and I think I can continue to perpetuate and create new relationships of this way if I can live intensely now. And that means a lot. That means changing a lot of activities that don't provide those kind of experience. It doesn't mean I have to make extreme sports or have competitions or things like that, but at least being living fully intensely what you're doing. For that you have to love what you do and to take risks, be willing to meet uncomfortable situations, and to create, to go, to move forward and say, okay, let's do it anyway. And you go and live new experiences, and you live them fully, and you're going to make mistakes, to stumble, to that, and that's not what matters. What matters is the idea that you have and the will to live intensely, to live at the fullest your life right now. So that's what I remind myself of this evening, or with my old friends, and where I lived a lot of intense moments. And I'm going to create that in my life now, because that's what I've always wanted to create. So to continue to create, and to know better, so that I can not depend on one particular activity, but to continue to create that, because that's mostly what makes me happy, really, to have those kind of intense moments where I live, when I express myself at the fullest, and I think that's completely linked, and live with some kind of very deep relationships with boys and girls around me. So that's really what touches me the most, and what is the most important in my life. So knowing that, I think I'm going to perceive and to create my life from now on much more focused on those aspects. So hope that can help. I'll tell you, what's next for me in these situations.